Maybe you think that politicians or doctors or directors or elders do not make mistakes. Just watch this video to understand what damage can be caused by a mistake. By looking at the biggest mistakes in history, you can see what a small mistake causes financial loss. The last case, in addition to the heavy financial loss, killed thousands of people and its effect is still ongoing. Number 5 is Star Wars. Let's take a special trip back to the 70s, when no one could have predicted that Star Wars would become one of the biggest cultural phenomena in history. The production of this film was difficult for George Lucas, and he repeatedly fell to the ground. But these disappointments were wrong in their predictions. In the face of all this difficulty and disappointment, 20th Century Fox signed a contract with George Lucas, regardless of the exciting potential of this film. They were only interested in royalties from selling merchandise and neglected the ability of Star Wars to improve the imagery of 20th century pop culture. But what happened next set a new standard for marketable franchises and gave Lucas a personal fortune in the billions. But Fox made this biggest mistake. They got it wrong, and it cost the studio a lot of money during the decades when Star Wars was so popular in theaters. This mistake encouraged Disney to acquire Lucasfilm and buy the Star Wars franchise, a decision that gave Disney a huge monetary bonus. Number 5 is Russia sells Alaska. Let's look at a map of North America and wonder how Alaska, this strange land that stands alone on the west coast of Canada and is completely separated from the mainland United States, is one of the United States. But did you know that this story goes back to the 1860s? Yes, at that time, Alaska, which was under the control of the Russian Empire, was sold to America by Tsar Alexander II for a very low price. But could we have predicted that this territory would become so valuable? Currently, Alaska is worth more than $130 million, which seems like a pittance compared to the quality and size of the land. The abundance of oil fields that can be found in Alaska alone give a lot of value to this land. But why did Russia decide to sell Alaska? The main reason for selling this land to America was to compensate for the losses of the Crimean War. Russia was looking for financial resources to rebuild its economy after the war, and Alaska was seen as a marketable asset. Also, Russia was concerned that it would not be able to defend Alaska well in the event of an invasion. If you want to learn more about these 5 historical mistakes and share them with us, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Number 3 is AOL buys Time Warner. In 2000, the tech world was at its peak and the dot-com bubble was growing amazingly. It seemed that nothing could stop this internet meteorite from advancing rapidly. But unexpectedly, the development of the internet proceeded at a slower pace while the stock market quickly declined and went into recession. One of the great examples of this stagnation was the merger of AOL and Time Warner in 2000, which many dismissed at the time. AOL, the leading internet company, spent a whopping $182 billion to merge with Time Warner. But after years, this alliance completely failed and the companies separated again. Today, Time Warner is still one of the major players in the media industry and plays a very important role in it, while AOL has significantly declined from its prime. The changes that have occurred show that sometimes all the appearances of a time can suddenly change and bring excitement in the business world. If you are interested in being surprised by the last moments of this video and enjoy seeing all the details of these 5 historical mistakes, be sure to stay with us until the end. Number 2 is Apollo 13. The basis of a blockbuster movie starring Tom Hanks, Apollo 13 was destined for the moon in 1970, but it never made it. Thankfully, unlike many other space failures like the high-profile Challenger and Columbia disasters in 1986 and 2003 respectively, the astronauts in Apollo 13 all survived. The problem was that an oxygen tank had been damaged long before its installation in the spacecraft, which was described as a bomb by Commander Jim Lovell. That bomb went off, severely damaging the craft when it was already in space. The crew had to move into the lunar module so they would survive and then loop around the moon to return to Earth. Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few dishonorable mentions. Morgan Stanley's lost his broker, Howie Hubler, lost billions of dollars. Speculating on mortgages in the 2000s, lost Bitcoin, James Howell. Accidentally threw out a hard drive with $480 million in Bitcoin on it. Write your reaction to this video in the comments with a sticker. But the biggest mistake in the history of Chernobyl. In 1986, one of the largest nuclear disasters in history occurred, known as Chernobyl. At first, the Soviet Union was very secretive about the disaster, greatly downplaying its significance. Even as the radioactivity spread to West Germany, the dangers and severity of the incident were covered up. But eventually, the truth came out and it became clear that many mistakes were responsible for the disaster and made it an avoidable tragedy. The human error of the workers was caused by a lack of preparation and a design flaw that was well known at the time but was not corrected. The main problem here was that the control rods, which were made of boron, had graphite tips. The graphite interacted with the reaction core and caused an explosion. If the control rods were made without the use of graphite, this disaster would not have occurred. This disaster had one of the biggest impacts on communities and the environment. In addition to the direct effects of radioactivity on humans and animals, it also affected long-term strategies in the world. Large areas around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant were permanently affected by radioactivity, and many people developed serious diseases such as cancer. The Chernobyl disaster showed that nuclear facilities must be designed and built with all care and caution, and that design flaws and human unpreparedness can have dire consequences. This event emphasized the necessity of observing safety and responsible use of nuclear energy and developing new technologies in this field. In the next video, we will introduce 5 famous hotels in India, so don't miss the next video.